Hello everyone, this is Pastor Ryan Pronzinski of Christ Lutheran Church in Michigan Center, Michigan, and this is my Chair Chat Daily Devotion for Monday, August 10th, 2020. Peace be with you. These video devotions are intended to help you engage your life of faith during this time of pandemic, and so with engagement in mind, I encourage you to leave constructive comments, questions, or prayer requests in the comments section below, and I promise that I will get to these in the following videos. With engagement in mind, I also encourage you to engage with one another in the comments section, because we learn best and we learn more when we learn and engage together. But if this is still too scary for you to do, I also just encourage you to take time throughout these videos to pause and reflect, journal, have conversation with those around you, share these videos with others, call them on the phone, talk about it, but try and find other people to engage with in a meaningful way. The readings themselves that are put forth in these videos come from what's called the Daily Revised Common Lectionary, which is a church calendar reading schedule, and it can be found online. The readings for today, which are in the description below, are as follows. We have Psalm 18, verses 1 through 19, Genesis chapter 7, verse 11, through chapter 8, verse 5, and then 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 4 through 10. Before I get to the readings themselves, as always, I'd like to invite anybody out there to join us for our online worship services at Christ Lutheran Church. We have been using Facebook Live to live stream our worship services, which take place at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the link to those worship services is in the description below, and you can also use that link to view the live stream on Sundays. If you are unable to make it for the live stream, I also just invite you and encourage you to watch the videos as you are able and hear about how God in Christ Jesus loves you, especially during these hard times. All that being said, move on to the first reading, which comes from Psalm 18, verses 1 through 19, and reads as follows. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, so I shall be saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me, the torrents of perdition assailed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord. To my God I cried for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. The earth reeled and rocked. The foundations also of the mountains trembled and quaked because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils, and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on cherub and flew. He came swiftly upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering around him, his canopy thick clouds with water, dark with water. Out of the brightness before him there broke through his clouds hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the Most High uttered his voice. And he sent out his arrows and scattered them. He flashed forth lightnings and routed them. Then the channels of the sea were seen, and the foundations of the world were laid bare. At your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. He reached down from on high, and he took me. He drew me out of the mighty waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy, and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a broad place. He delivered me because he delighted in me. Here ends the reading. So what is most meaningful about this psalm for me this morning is this: God never lets me down. And I would hope that you could trust, too, that God never lets you down. And what I mean by this is every other relationship, no matter how good, beautiful, or strong, and I hope you have a plethora of beautiful, strong, and good relationships, no matter how good those relationships, beautiful those relationships, strong those relationships are, they will inevitably have moments where they falter, weaken, or strain, where they feel like they are not quite enough, not quite supportive enough in the moment. And please let me be clear as I say this, I don't necessarily mean that all relationships outside of God will become weak or brittle or break. I'm simply saying that there will be times in every relationship outside of God where they will not be strong enough by themselves to support you in the way that you need. To support me, to support you, to support us. They just won't. We're human, right? And human beings by ourselves, we cannot survive on our own. I don't have this in my notes, but I can't help but think of Jesus in John chapter 15, where he says, I am the vine and you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Right? That's what I'm getting at here. So my heart is warmed and hopeful when I read the words, quote, I love you, O Lord, my strength. Those words are my words this morning. I love you, O Lord, my strength. I hope those words can be your words this morning too. For God is eternal, eternally strong, and eternally strong for me, and eternally strong for you, especially when we are feeling weak. And that is something worth saying, I love you, Lord, for. And I know that I am feeling weak today. And I don't mean that in a physical sense. I am not sick, nor am I unhealthy. I'm very healthy. I mean that in the spiritual, emotional sense, I am not feeling terribly strong. I am feeling weak today. This pandemic and all the troubles that it is stirring up, it's tiring. It's absolutely tiring. And so today I am feeling weak. And I imagine that you might be feeling this way too. So it is good to hear that our God, your God, my God, is strong for you, for me, for all of us. Strong to deliver you, strong to deliver me, strong to deliver us collectively. Because the truth is, as the psalmist says, God delights in you. God delights in me. God delights in us. Just look back to Genesis 1:31, where God looks out upon all that God has made, including you and I. And God says, you are very good. God delights in who you are, because you are God's beloved. So now here again, the bookends of this psalm, and I hope you find strength from these words, as it did for me. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer. He delivers me because he delights in me. All right, on to Genesis chapter 7, verse 11 through chapter 8, verse 5, which reads as follows. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month. On that day all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. The rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On the very same day Noah with his sons Shem and Ham and Japheth and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons entered the ark. They and every wild animal of every kind, and all domestic animals of every kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, and every bird of every kind, every bird, every winged creature. They went into the ark with Noah. 2 and 2 of all flesh in which there was the breath of life. And those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded them. And the Lord shut him in. The flood continued 40 days on the earth, and the waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters swelled and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. The waters swelled so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters swelled above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep, and all flesh died that moved on the earth. Birds, domestic animals, wild animals, all swarming creatures that swarmed the earth, and all human beings. Everything on dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, human beings and animals and creeping things and birds of the air. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those that were with him in the ark. And the waters swelled on the earth for 150 days. But God remembered Noah, and all the wild animals, and all the domestic animals that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed. The rain from the heavens were restrained, and the waters gradually receded from the earth. At the end of 150 days the waters had abated. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains appeared. Here ends the reading. There is a lot that could be discussed as it concerns the flood, and again, the use of violence by God in the Bible. If you're really wanting to dig deep into that, I will help you work through that. Please understand that I too read this text, and it is hard because of the violence that is present in it. I am willing to walk with you in that. But for this video, since it's intended to be a devotion and related to the here and now, I'm going to go a different direction. But just, I want you to know I acknowledge the hardship of this text. It's not the playful, children's Bible story that we often make it to be. The flood is very violent, confusing, and hard. But there's also good news in it. And so I'm going to get to that part of it today. And this is the phrase that I am struck by as I read this story for like the umpteenth time. I've read this so many times. And honestly, this phrase has never stuck out to me, but it does today because of context. Quote, "And the Lord shut him in." And the Lord shut him in. How many of you out there are feeling shut in? I know there are days when I do. How many of you out there feel like the world is unrecognizable today? Say, like going from dry ground all over the place to then being able to see nothing but water. Are you hearing how I'm trying to make parallels between the story of Noah and today? I hope that's becoming clear. I imagine many of you feel this way, shut in and unable to recognize the world as it is today versus how it has been most of your life. Well, we are reminded today that even in times of seclusion, confusion, and uncertainty, I'll say those three words again because I hope they resonate with where you are today. Seclusion, confusion, and uncertainty. Even in the midst of these moments of life, we are reminded today that God is in control. That's the first thing I'm struck by. Second thing I'm struck by is this phrase. God remembered Noah. The word he is used, but it's referring to God. God remembered Noah. It's really easy to think that God has forgotten us when our world and our lives seem upside down. The reality is, God remembers you always. And as the psalmist says, God's desire is to bring you, to deliver you to a broad place. That's what we heard in the psalm today. Just as God brings Noah, his family, and all living things to dry land after the flood. And lastly, I'm struck by the fact that all of creation was in this journey of seclusion, confusion, and uncertainty together. God shut them all in together. And that's how they made it through this time of seclusion, confusion, and uncertainty. They did it together as creation and creator together. So as we find ourselves in our own world-altering flood of pandemic, how might you seek to live and work together with those around you to strengthen, support, cheer up, and help one another make it through? It's really easy to complain, to lament, to point the finger or blame or talk about how you would like things to be. It's another thing to try and work hard and support and sacrifice. But that is how Noah and his family and all of creation made it through. They had to do it together. So how might you seek to live and work together with those around you to strengthen, support, cheer up, and help one another make it through these hard times? And as you live in unity and support with others, how might this act of service and love help you and those who are struggling to remember that God does in fact remember them and you, and God is in control? It is amazing how we can see God when we seek to love and serve others, and we open up ourselves to receive love and service and support from others. So God bless you in doing this. On to 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 4 through 10. For if God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into Tartarus and committed them to chains of the deepest darkness to be kept until the judgment, and if he did not spare the ancient world, even though he saved Noah, a herald of righteousness, with 7 others, when he brought a flood on a world of the ungodly, And if by turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to ashes he condemned them to extinction and made them an example of what is coming to the ungodly, and if he rescued Lot, a righteous man greatly distressed by the licentiousness of lawless, for that righteous man living among them day after day was tormented in his righteousness, in his righteous soul, by their lawless deeds that he saw and heard. If God has done all of this, then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials, and to keep the unrighteous under punishment until the day of judgment, especially those who indulge their flesh in depraved lust and who despise authority. Bold and willful, they are not afraid to slander the glorious ones. Here ends the reading. All right. I know, again, with this reading, there's probably a lot of stuff people may want to ponder about, but I would encourage you that the one verse in relationship to the other readings today and what's been discussed, the one verse that you need to hold on to from this reading this morning is this, quote, "The Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trial." The Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trial. These words are the crux of this reading. I mean, that is at the heart of what is being spoken in this letter. And I would argue that that's pretty much the crux of the readings for this day. Again, God knows how to rescue you, me, our families, our communities, our world. God knows how to rescue us from trial. So I guess I'll end by asking this. What trials do you face today? How are your trials similar to other people in the Bible who God has delivered? And how might you revisit these stories today or on other days, because our trials don't seem to be going anywhere soon? How might you revisit these stories in order to look and listen to how God might be working to deliver you now? This Bible that we have, full of stories and saints, full of sinners and saints and stories. It is intended to help us commune with God and our fellow sisters and brothers of God who have come before us, to remember how God has delivered them and can deliver us too. So I hope you can find strength in God by finding strength in the stories that God and God's people have left with us, stories of deliverance, stories of how God has helped God's people overcome times of trial. May the communion of the saints and the voice and the strength of God give you good courage this day, my dear friends in Christ. And God bless you in both facing and overcoming your trials that you face today. And God bless us in facing and overcoming our trials, our human trials that we face today. With all that being said, again I say peace be with you, and I will talk to you tomorrow.